but I want to, of course, thank my team who you're going to meet briefly in a few minutes. I just formally introduce them when we get there. And seeing lots of folks. You're welcome to keep your camera on or off. We're going to be using the chat function today for Q&A later on. So audio won't be an option for you, but we do hope you'll engage through the chat. And hopefully I remember to say that again, because that's super important. Again, appreciate you joining, and we're just waiting for folks to log on here before we officially kick off. Probably about 2 more minutes before we hit the ground running with our presentation today. Thank you again for making time to be with us. Lovely to see those of you who I know in the meeting today. Lots and lots and lots of folks from right across the country. Some of our favorite people, amazing. All of our favorite people, in fact. It's terrific. Wow, nicest boardroom goes to Anya Niffin, if I'm saying that correctly. Wow, what a lovely space. And I can't remember who it was. Coolest car shot goes to Chris Gibbs. Looking good. Amazing. 1 more minute, we're going to kick off officially. We're going to have folks joining us late. We all know that's how Zoom goes, but not to worry. We're recording this. Of course, people aren't hearing me right now, so it doesn't matter to them, but we are going to record this and you'll be able to play it back for everyone. So to those of you who are on the call now and need to leave early, you'll be able to catch the rest of this on our website. Oh, it's Corey Crossman in the fin. Is it Corey Crossman? It is. Hello, Corey Crossman. You're on my phone, you're on my computer, you're everywhere today. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful. Look at all these fantastic names joining from across the country. This is terrific. Amazing. Again, want to thank you so much for your participation. So I'm going to look to my team and Allison and Maddie with a thumbs up if you feel we're ready to go. Excellent. I'm going to have a quick sip of tea. And we are going to begin. And again, I know that our numbers will ebb and flow throughout the presentation. So Sergio's got his finger on the entryway, the portal into the waiting room. So we'll get going here, everyone. Okay, amazing. Hello, my name is Erin Benjamin, and I am the president and CEO, the very privileged and honored president and CEO of the Canadian Live Music Association. And I am coming to you from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I'm going to do a brief land acknowledgement before I get into some introductions and housekeeping. Ottawa is built on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and their presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Canadian Live Music Association honors the peoples and land of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. The Canadian Live Music Association honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. So I want to thank you again, everyone, for taking time to be with us today as we walk you through reflections on labor challenges in the live music industry. One of the first things I must do is acknowledge and thank our amazing funder and partner, Ontario Creates, who have not only been patient and understanding, but have regularly shared their wisdom and advice and guidance as we've navigated this complicated subject and project. Huge shout out to Lisa and all of the team at Ontario Creates for your help and support. I would very briefly like to introduce my incredible team from the Canadian Live Music Association. We like to call ourselves small but mighty. And that's not always a good thing. I'd like to say we do a little with a lot. That's also not a good thing. We could do a lot with a lot more with a lot, but these people work day in and day out to help make your lives better, no matter where you live, no matter what your role is in the industry, or frankly, even if you're outside of our sector and you're joining us today because you're curious. I want to tell you that each and every one of these people work incredibly hard to try and make our lives better through live music. So in no particular order, just we'll take a wave from each of my amazing team. Jacqueline Morin, who's our latest addition, our intern based in Ottawa. We have the amazing Erin Coyle, who some of you probably know from her previous lives working with us. Very lucky to have her also in Ottawa. Where is Sergio? There he is, Sergio Parra, who is an incredible addition to this team based in Ottawa. 3 people, that's 4 of us in Ottawa, which has never happened in this association's history, which is great. However, Lucky Toronto is home to Maddie Oliver, my right hand here, and without whom this organization would cease to function. So Maddie, thank you for all that you do. And of course, Allison Cool, who lives outside of Toronto and is managing this meeting today. And this team you see before you are bringing you this study and so many, many more projects, initiatives, and work on behalf of Ontario and Canada's live music sector. And on behalf of our board of directors, I want to give my team the deepest thanks for being incredible people, hard workers, and passionate, wonderful, interesting, special human beings. So thank you all. Okay. We're going to move on now. Listen, the ultimate goal of the research that you're going to learn about today was really to identify ways to improve the attraction and retention of the live music labor force in Ontario. We all know that live music continues to grapple with a host of challenges. Pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, there is a juggernaut, there is a convergence, there is an intersectionality to some of the issues that no matter what your role in the industry is, you continue to face. And labor, of course, is at the heart of so many of our companies and organizations, and continues to be a huge challenge. So we wanted to take a deeper dive and take a close look and see what we could learn and what kind of recommendations we could take away for ourselves and for you and for government to help build a better future for live music in Ontario and beyond. I want to let you know that this meeting is being recorded, and which means we'll be able to share it afterwards. So you are going to, as soon as I'm done talking, which is momentarily, you're going to meet our amazing colleagues from Nordicity. You'll see a 35 presentation on the study from Nordicity, and then we'll save time for questions and Q&A at the end. And I'm going to ask you to please use the chat function. No audio for you today, but chat, and we'll be watching like a hawk to make sure any of your questions I will be able to moderate for you and make sure that we get those questions in there if appropriate. So please feel free anytime, and we'll keep track of those. And if for some reason we missed something, put it back in there. We'll do our best. The entire presentation that you're going to see today will be available after the meeting on our website. And I think that's all the housekeeping that I've got. So without further ado, let's get into the presentation. I'd like to introduce 2 of the amazing team from Nordicity. 2 people who have worked with us through thick and thin on this project. It was a long time in the making, and I'm very grateful to the remarkable brain trust at Nordicity, including these 2 people, Zoe Brown and Megan Lynch. Before they take the mic, I want you to know, if you were like, who's Nordicity? Well, Nordicity is a leading international consulting firm. They provide public and private sector clients with tons of solutions, economic, policy, regulation. But my favorite thing about Nordicity is that I think that they have one of the deepest intrinsic understanding of the music ecosystem in this country. They are my regular go-to. They're who I turn to when I need great advice, reflection, information, and data on our current context, what we're living today, and what we think we're going to be living tomorrow. I love working with Nordicity, and they've been amazing partners on this project. So thank you to the entire Nordicity team. And with that, I will hand it over to Zoe and Megan.
All right, well, thank you so much for that introduction, Erin, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Again, my name is Zoe Brown. I'm a consultant at Nordicity based out of our Toronto office. And just to briefly build on Erin's introduction, as a firm, we're very much involved in the music industry alongside our work in other arts, culture, and creative industries. Within music, we've conducted research studies, much like the one we're presenting to you today, as well as municipal music strategies. We work with organizations on building strategic plans and also conducting economic impact assessments. My work personally falls in much of these areas in our practice. As you know, in a past life, I was a musician and a concert presenter, so many of these issues are really near and dear to my heart as well. Just before we dive in, I'm going to pass it off to my colleagues super quickly. Throw it to you, Megan, to briefly introduce yourself.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Zoe. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Lynch. I'm a manager in Nordicity's Toronto office. And along with Zoe, I too do a lot of work on the music industry file at Nordicity, municipal music strategies, impact assessments, industry-related research projects like the one we're going to speak to today. So really pleased to be with you all here today to present this research project.
Great. So in addition to thanking, of course, Ontario Creates, we did also want to take a quick moment to thank our various partners for their support in our research efforts. So shout out to the City of London, Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, the City of Toronto, and also the Transact Club. So thank you so much for your assistance. So on to the next slide, let's start digging into what exactly this report was about. Next slide, please. Perfect. So this report, again, commissioned by the CLMA, serves as an exploration of the labor challenges facing the live music industry in Ontario and, by extension, Canada. So the impetus for exploring these challenges at this point in time was really born from the aftermath of the pandemic. So while there hasn't been a ton of data collected to date, it is largely understood that a number of live music workers have left the industry, especially at the height of the pandemic for various reasons, and many have not since returned. So it's within this context that we sought to uncover what the key labor challenges are that are facing the industry, and then how the industry can better explore, support, and nurture a healthy and robust live music workforce. I also want to mention that this is not a strategy document. While we do propose some potential avenues and recommendations to really help move the industry forward, ultimately the findings captured throughout the report are meant to serve more as food for thought and hopefully start bringing different groups from the music ecosystem together to collectively think about and really tackle these industry-wide challenges. So quickly on the who, the insights captured in this report were gathered from across live music workers in the industry. So this included those who are just looking to get their start, those who are already in the industry, and those who have recently left for whatever reason. And then also in the scope of this work, what we mean by live music workers are those working in behind the scene roles. So not artists, but positions like venue owners, sound lighting technicians, event producers, PR and promoters, and so on. While of course artists are key to the industry, we really wanted to understand the issues facing those in these kind of key support behind the scenes roles for this work. On to the next slide. We'll get into the why of this work. So as I mentioned, the catalyst for this research was this perception of a labor shortage in the industry. But that being said, our research revealed a much more nuanced picture of the underlying issue. So for one, there are a number of eager young professionals looking to make their start, but who face challenges in securing opportunities. Although shortages might not be as wide-reaching in the industry as we maybe initially thought, and only apparent in certain facets of the industry. So for instance, we were hearing shortages around experienced live AV techs as one example. So overall, it seems that the labor shortage is mainly around securing mid-career talent more so than junior entry-level positions. Also, other CLMA research, such as Closing the Gap, indicates that those from marginalized communities experience some of these challenges much more strongly and pronounced. In terms of the how, so our research for this work took the shape of 3 open houses or pop-ups in Ontario. So we held one in Toronto, one in London, and then one in Ottawa. We also had an online input form. It wasn't a full-blown survey, but more so designed to get at those who are interested but unable to attend these open houses in person. So overall, we were able to hear from approximately 85 individuals who, again, are currently working or want to work in the live industry. Just before I pass it over to Megan, I also want to quickly note that for those of you tuning in, much of the challenges that we present today won't or really shouldn't be necessarily new information, as hopefully it's reflective of a kind of broader industry experiences that you're likely all experiencing yourselves in some capacity. So that being said, our hope is that by capturing this information and having these conversations, we can start to move the needle forward towards a more sustainable workforce. So I'm going to now pass it over to Megan to kick us off and sharing back what we heard and more about our research.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Zoe. Great. So yeah, now we're going to dive into the research itself. Before we do that, though, we did just want to share here because we really framed our research around a central question. How can we reach an ideal industry with more sustainable workforce? So what needs to be in place or what actions need to be taken in order to get there? So as such, we had to define what does that ideal industry look like? And that's what we have summarized here on this slide. So ultimately, an ideal industry is one that is stable, sustainable, disaster-proofed, from future pandemics. It's accessible for new live music workers to enter. It's equitable, fair for workers from all backgrounds, genders, ages, abilities. It's open, it's inviting to all people, and it's supportive and it's safe. And we also identified 3 critical elements that are needed in order to get there, to get to this ideal industry. So that's overarching coordination and leadership, a place for all within the industry, so diversity, inclusion, and collaborative efforts across all players in the ecosystem. So that includes city governments, associations, major employers, post-secondary institutions, in addition to all of those folks working in the live music sector. Perfect. Great. So we organized our research into 5 key themes that emerged from the discussions that we had with those in the industry. And that's visualized here in this framework on this slide. These themes are the areas of action that need to be addressed in order to reach this ideal live music industry that I was speaking about, and ultimately to create the conditions that are needed for a sustainable workforce. And moving this framework forward, it's really a shared responsibility across the whole live music ecosystem. So we're now going to dive in and walk through each of these themes in more detail. For each theme, we'll summarize the challenges that we heard from the sector related to this theme, and then identify what would be needed or some suggested actions to address these challenges. So theme number 1 is sector infrastructure. And by that, we mean the supportive or favorable policies and other foundational elements that are needed in order to support the live music sector. And we were led to the development of this theme because we heard several challenges from people that we spoke with around this area, including municipal policies such as parking limitations, insurance liability, permits. These things can often impede live music activity. Additionally, some municipal bylaws, for example, zoning, directly affect operations of critical live music employers, venues. Another challenge that was cited was ensuring safe and reliable transit during late working hours that many live music workers experience. Also, the recent closure of many venues across Ontario, this isn't just a problem for artists, it also presents an issue for those working across the sector. Managers, bookers, everyone's affected by closing of venues. And so supporting spaces for music is integral to ensuring that live music workers have a place to do their jobs. Another challenge that we heard was a lack of labor standards, particularly in terms of compensation and benefits. As such, many live music workers don't understand their value, nor what constitutes a fair wage. We also heard that while overarching organizations such as unions or industry associations, they obviously provide much needed support, but it is difficult for live music workers to organize themselves when so many are contractors. And some industry workers noted that the high cost of joining a union can be a barrier. Challenges were also noted around exclusivity clauses, where a contractor cannot work for another client when they're on contract. And while these clauses help to ensure that events are staffed and that people don't leave for another, higher paying contract, This clause can limit freelancers' job prospects and can impact their ability to make a living. And lastly, there was a real desire, especially from women that we spoke with, to ensure working conditions are safe, inclusive, and welcoming for everyone. So while there is a code of conduct in the industry, we heard that it wasn't commonly known by folks that we spoke with. Hazard pay also was raised as a need for acknowledgement of the risks of the live music workers that live music workers are facing. For example, setting up lighting in spaces with really high ceilings. So just go to the next slide. Perfect. So, with these challenges in mind, what's needed in order to address these sector infrastructure related challenges could include municipal advocacy. So having a champion within municipal structures, this can really help to turn barriers into possibilities, particularly around advocating for live music friendly bylaws, such as, late night transit, parking, zoning, etc. Also, when municipalities can develop municipal music strategies and nightlife economy action plans in partnership with local live music communities, it can help to put this advocacy into action. Templates and guides around best practices also would help workers to better navigate the industry and to advocate for themselves. This could include clear benefit guides, guides around compensation for in-kind hours, accessibility riders, venue guides with photos so that workers know what to expect, enforcing contracts with terms of pay and the scope of work really clearly outlined, benchmarking for pay or increasing transparency around rates and career paths. All of these can help to equip live music workers to advocate for themselves and to convey their value. An ideal industry also has overarching bodies with focused roles on reinforcing and supporting these workforce standards for all live music workers. One example of a non-union supportive structure in the US, it's called the United Musicians and Allied Workers. So this emerged during the pandemic as a way for workers to come together and identify solutions and advocate for themselves. And lastly, a need for capital. Access to financing is critical to growing and sustaining an ideal sector. In particular, funds specifically for venues. Obviously, these are critical to the industry. So funding in particular to help support risk-taking and programming, job creation, training. Connections can also be made between the industry and other sources of funding that are beyond public grants, such as with the private sector. Great. So our second theme is supportive and inclusive culture. So an ideal industry will foster a supportive and inclusive culture. But we heard that there are some current challenges in this area, including around work-life balance. So the nature of much of the work requires workers to be comfortable with a sort of hustle culture. There's instability, long days, in-kind hours. Some folks we spoke with reported that becoming contractors allows them to have more control over the work that they take on, but there are added trade-offs, such as being responsible for deductions, having no access to benefits, etc. We also heard that it's difficult to achieve a full-time career in live music. Many workers report that they keep multiple jobs, not all in music, just to keep up with the increased costs of living. Some workers also noted that live music work, particularly in festival circuits, it's really seasonal. So there's lots of downtime, there's periods of limited work. And we also heard that live music often operates on a sort of who you know basis, access to opportunities, training, mentorship. It's reportedly tied to knowing someone already in the industry. And this dynamic can make it really hard, not only to become a part of the industry, but also to implement and to preserve equity, diversity, inclusion principles across the sector. Equity, diversity, and inclusion challenges, these are not just related to access, they extend beyond that. And the report that Zoe mentioned earlier, CLMA's Closing the Gap report, which they commissioned, has more detail on that. So please see that report for more on that topic. So with the aforementioned challenges around supportive and inclusive culture in mind, we identified some elements that are really needed in order to create this culture. So first, better work-life balance. Many of the demands on live music workers are causing people to exit the industry. And in order to retain and attract people to the industry, obviously more balance would be required. Some initiatives to consider include increasing visibility and access to opportunities, such as through a public job board, will help to just increase that openness, that transparency around the opportunities available. Exploring methods to reduce or compensate people for in-kind hours also, exploring methods to support working parents, and also looking to best practices from other sectors with similar contractor dynamics. For example, the Tourism Workforce Sustainability Framework created by the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario. It seeks to create better conditions and balance for tourism workers. Mental health support is also really important. The inherent hustle culture can really cause burnout, we heard, and as such, increasing the focus on employee well-being and mental health support is really critical. Employers, in particular, can support by amplifying existing resources for industry workers, such as those offered by Unison, a resource page on venues and associations. The Canadian Independent Music Association, CIMA, has a resource list, really just to increase that awareness and to really normalize mental health support. Also considering mental health needs of employees and contractors when negotiating employee benefits and compensation. And systemic change really needs to start from the top. Training and support for those in charge in terms of inclusive practices, supporting mental health, and supporting staff in ways that they need is a really valuable place to start. And lastly, inclusion. So an ideal sector would include policies and programs that support an inclusive sector, which could include ensuring inclusive accommodations for individuals with disabilities, boosting programs that encourage and support diversity in the industry, and then also supporting people once they are working in it too. Implementing and reinforcing mentorship programs, encouraging safe spaces at venues and other job sites, and setting industry-wide diversity goals. So with that, I will turn it over to Zoe to walk us through the other themes.
Great, thanks, Megan. So on to theme 3, which is a path for career growth. And this is important as having a clear career trajectory and opportunities for advancement is important for job fulfillment and feeling equipped for success. So in terms of some of the challenges we heard around this theme include, well, first and foremost, entrepreneurship. So many in the industry work as entrepreneurs, whether by choice or in some cases out of necessity. That said, it can be difficult for entrepreneurs to navigate the business side of the industry, and we heard from some that they find it difficult to find information or have the right know-how to do so. Related to this last point, there are key business skills gaps in the industry. So both in terms of important soft skills, like networking, negotiation, marketing, being able to pitch your services, and then also hard skills like navigating taxes, accounting, and grant writing. Many workers also noted that it can be difficult to keep on top of industry shifts since the industry is constantly evolving with new technology, on new ways of working, and especially following the pandemic safety requirements. In terms of accreditation, working in certain areas of the industry, such as AV, requires a level of technical know-how. However, there's a lack of standardization across training and equipment in venues, which can make it hard to ensure that a worker is equipped with the right skills that can be transferable to all jobs. And this is especially impacts new entrants to the industry. It's not just graduates popping up that are looking to enter the live music industry. We also heard from folks who are or have entered music from other sectors as well. So that transition can also be challenging, especially in regards to music jargon and understanding the complexities of the music industry. In creating improved pathways for career growth, we've identified 2 key priority areas. So the first being more support for entrepreneurs to advance their work in the industry. So this could be done through providing business skills training. So again, that could be targeting the soft and hard skills I mentioned previously. And this could be developed kind of collectively by industry associations, post-secondary institutions, and municipalities working alongside city business centers who often do provide general business training. Another initiative could look at coordinating workforce and business skill development efforts. So here the industry could look to the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario's SkillsNet platform in figuring out how best to do this work and apply it for the music industry. We have signposted this resource in the full report, so have a look and you can dig into that more if you're interested. Another initiative here includes hosting boot camps or incubators tailored to entrepreneurs in live music. Such initiatives could be explored at local levels, such as through municipalities or even working with or partnership with post-secondary institutions. And also building better awareness of existing opportunities, such as seed funding and one-on-one business development supports, again, which are often offered through city business centers. The second area here is professional development and really ensuring that these types of opportunities exist for kind of all career levels in the industry. So some examples of initiatives here could include providing ongoing safety training, providing toolkits to help workers navigate the industry, such as how-to guides on how to run an event, and guides to help streamline the artist-event organizer relationship. So that could include, what information event organizers need from artists to be able to book a show, to be able to really streamline that communication. And these types of initiatives could be the work of associations and or arts councils, for instance, working alongside venues and event organizers. So onto our 4th theme, which was workforce readiness. And so this relates to fostering a talent pipeline and preparing new entrants for the industry. So the challenges in this area include issues with entry. So as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of emerging professionals looking to make their start in the industry, but sometimes face difficulties in securing opportunities for a number of reasons, but in large part due to the fact that employers are often looking for experienced workers to fill much needed positions. Getting junior talent to the level that they need requires on-the-job training and investment that some employers, frankly, don't have the time or aren't able to provide. Also, as mentioned earlier, there is limited data on where precisely the labor gaps are in the industry. And an ideal industry would know where these gaps are and then be able to produce talent equipped to fill those gaps. In terms of limited hands-on experience, so schools equip students with exceptional foundational knowledge, but do not always produce job-ready individuals. So that means that more hands-on experience is required before graduates are truly industry ready. There also isn't formalized training for all facets of the industry. So as one example, event programmers play a significant role in the industry in terms of letting talent through the gate and helping to boost artists' careers and closing the gap in that report. This role can also serve as a gatekeeper if not done correctly. So, but there is no formalized training or guidance around this role as one example. There's also an element of risk at play, with employers being hesitant to take on a new employee with limited experience, but then emerging workers cannot gain experience without on-the-job training, so thus creating a bit of a catch-22 situation. There's also limited recognition of those working in the industry and their value, and limited formal discussion around all the potential career paths available in music. In terms of all ages, There are some age restrictions within the industry. So for instance, some venues might not let in workers who are under the age of 19. So that can then limit opportunities for young emerging professionals to get that exposure. And lastly, in terms of representation, there was a lack of diversity and representation noted among the industry as a barrier to pursuing careers. So if an aspiring live music worker does not see themselves reflected in the industry, they're then less keen to pursue it. So this was noted particularly for some of the more male-dominated facets of the live industry. So with these challenges in mind, on the next slide, we dig into what is needed to better shape an industry-ready workforce. So the first piece is keeping a pulse on the skills gap. So there's a need here to have more connection between associations and post-secondary institutions to examine the state of the industry and understand where key gaps are in the sector in terms of positions and skills. By conveying what skills are needed, post-secondary institutions can then be better equipped to redefine their curricula and then better produce job-ready graduates. Then in terms of classroom to industry training, more opportunities are required to help aspiring workers get ready for the industry. And some possible initiatives here could include hands-on training at the high school level and at post-secondary level for students, connecting them with venues and other employers through co-ops and internships and those pieces. Also establishing curriculum guidelines at post-secondary levels with input from various industry players. So that could include input from venues and sector advisory councils, also input from associations. Creating all ages opportunities for learning. So exploring how to get high school students interested in opportunities is one key area. And that could be the work of municipalities and industry associations as well. Another initiative could look at amplifying and creating more mentorship opportunities and accelerators, especially for those from marginalized communities, and ensuring that there's adequate representation on faculty at post-secondary institutions. And then also another initiative could look at strengthening the existing volunteer and internship matching programs, such as those offered by varying arts councils and municipalities, and then providing paid training and apprenticeship programs so that aspiring professionals understand their value and have that expectation of getting paid from the get-go. Another key need here is around encouraging and incentivizing employers to provide opportunities for early career workers. And so this could be an area for municipalities to perhaps further explore. So that could look at methods of offsetting kind of key pain points related to costs in terms of hiring and training of junior staff. And then the last piece here is around awareness of career pathways. So here, educational institutions and associations should or could promote the various career pathways available in music to students and showcase that a career in live music is both valuable and viable. So on to our final theme, which is connection and communication. And this is important because a thriving live music workforce is one that is well connected and also well informed. So we heard a number of challenges related to this area, starting with relationships that Megan kind of touched on earlier. So much in the industry seems to hinge on inner networks and relationships, and that can make it difficult for some to enter. It was also here expressed by many workers that the industry can feel fragmented, siloed, and exclusive in part because of this. And this sentiment was also more pronounced in facets of the industry that tend to be more male-dominated as well. So in terms of awareness of opportunities, as kind of alluded to throughout our presentation today, there's a general feeling in the industry of not knowing what opportunities are available. You know, not everyone in the industry knows where to look to find career opportunities or training opportunities, or, you know, where to even start, especially for those just starting out in the industry. In terms of collaboration, this is not really a challenge per se. It was just something noted from many workers that there was this increased collaboration and collective problem solving that emerged during COVID-19 that many really applaud and celebrate and really hope to see continued as we navigate these industry-wide challenges. And then the last piece here, a well-connected industry is not just, you know, connected to itself, but also to its audiences. So here, there's a key challenge around reaching audiences, which is a particular pain point for many live music workers, especially those working in smaller venues and events that tend to have smaller marketing resources available to do this work. So on the next slide, we've identified a few key pieces required to increase connection and communication to strengthen live music industry workforce. So the first being a need to increase opportunities related to collaboration, connection, and information sharing. So such as providing and promoting networking opportunities so that music industry workers can meet one another and kind of share learnings. And this could look like ongoing, informal, regular meetups at local levels. This also entails maintaining open lines of communication among live music organizations and also looking to build relationships outside of the music sector to tackle some of these systemic challenges, such as with other kind of gig economy type sectors, tourism, and so on. Another key need here is around increasing visibility and awareness. So there's a need to improve sightlines across the industry around existing professional development and career opportunities. This could also look at relationships and partnerships with music journalism outlets as a way of helping to spread the word here. There's also a need to better help connect those looking for opportunities with what's out there and really helping to provide those opportunities for exposure and portfolio building. So this could be better done through hosting career fairs, which would be targeted at entry-level workers and getting them started in the industry and also exposing them to all the career paths available in music. Also hosting expositions, which are currently offered by some municipalities, and those could be geared to helping workers at all levels of career expand their network and find new opportunities. And then also having culture exchange programs, and this would allow professionals to expand their networks and also horizons in other communities. And this is something that could be done through sister city partnerships, for example. And then lastly, there's a need, as I mentioned, to support smaller venues and events and in turn those who work in these settings in promotional efforts. So this could look like boosting the visibility of events and venues in tourism communications and at local levels and through more coordinated efforts at provincial levels as well. This could also be done by increasing awareness of event listings among industry and audiences alike. So that concludes our 5 main themes. So I'll throw it back to Megan to wrap up our portion of the presentation.
Thanks so much, Zoe. So yes, just in conclusion, while our mandate for this research was to explore the labor challenges facing the live music industry in Ontario, ultimately, this research revealed that challenges in the industry may go beyond labor shortages. So, envisioned solutions need to be more multifaceted and really collaborative. So it's our hope that by summarizing some of the key challenges facing live music workers and identifying some areas for improvement to create a healthier, more sustainable workforce, this research can really be a first step towards action. So I want to thank you all so much for your time and for listening to us today. And we can now open the floor to some questions.
Amazing. Megan and Zoe, thank you so much. And a great job there, Allison, behind the scenes. Appreciate it. It was very compelling. And you said off the top, like for a lot of folks on the call, like some of this isn't new. Obviously, we've been experiencing all of these challenges, for a while now, but to have it concisely, in front of us like this. I mean, there are a lot of really, really excellent recommendations. And I see the work for associations. I see the work for municipalities. I see the work for individual companies and organizations. So really appreciate the way that you've not only thought about the information you received back from the participants, but also the way you contextualize it for us here. I think it's digestible and really a lot of very actionable stuff in there. I'm particularly excited by the whole notion, and if I may just briefly, like the whole notion of job fairs. When you think about other industries, how do they recruit? I just, in live music, we haven't had to really think like other sectors for a long time. But when we really take a look at how other sectors far outside of our own do it, I mean, there are tried and true ways that work. And we know in some of the smaller roundtables that we had in the process of the study, we did hear from post-secondary on how meaningful that would be in terms of an intersection between what they're growing these students and then this, really putting surfacing for these students what the options are. We think about the trades, we think about again, whether it's automotive, forestry, healthcare, education, I mean, there are pathways, there are established pathways in which people are enticed and recruited into key job opportunities and career paths. So great information in this, and super grateful to Nordicity for packaging it in again in such a digestible way. We received one question in the chat, which I will read back to you now, and I would encourage our participants to continue to use it if anything's coming to mind. And I have a couple of questions I would like to ask myself further. So let's go to David's question. David asked, I'm interested to know more about feedback or recommendations that were received about municipalities reviewing noise regulations to support the industry that was mentioned in the theme. He focuses on noise regulations, but perhaps, municipalities in general. Nordicity, do you have any comments on that question?
Yeah, so that came through just as, a challenge that venues can be facing, and a policy area that certainly advocacy can really help to address. So building those champions within municipalities, identifying policies that maybe have unintended negative effects too. Like it's not always known that, oh, this is affecting live music, right? Because it's created maybe for a separate reason. So being able to connect those existing policies into those potentially unknown side effects through those kind of building of personal relationships within municipalities is really what we're getting at in particular there.
Yeah, very interesting question. And I think that's very slowly. And of course, we have folks on this call who are very intimately engaged or work for their municipalities on this point. But I think we have a lot of work to do in our industry still to entrench the relationship between live music workers and the local, fiscal and cultural policy at a municipal level and economic activity, et cetera, and to really think about the positioning or repositioning, as it were, of the work itself and the company types of companies and organizations and activity involved. If I may, because there's another question there. Let's see. Thank you, Ryan. Let me just read this for you. I'm wondering how style fits into your analysis. For example, I have friends who play different types of music that have very limited commercial appeal. They aren't new entrants, but the demand is lower than it is for other more mainstream styles like jazz or pop. I love they say jazz is mainstream. For some people it is, certainly. Do you attempt to break down labor market by musical style, or is it even possible to do?
Yeah, I think that's quite a complicated question. I will start off by saying this work primarily focused on the behind the scenes roles and not necessarily artists. So we didn't really go to the depths of kind of separating by music genre. But of course, I think there is that added potential layer to analysis that we didn't do for this scope of work that you could look at maybe, again, some of those the impacts facing live music workers, in mainstream mainstream music versus kind of these more non-mainstream channels as well, and just kind of understanding like smaller venues and what's facing those in particular, which we kind of touched on with promotional assistance needed to kind of help boost those up. So I think that's the level that we were able to kind of apply to this analysis for our kind of scope of work.
Well, and it's a great segue into the couple of questions that I wanted to ask on behalf of the participants today. And the first one would be like, how can I get involved? What do you think the next steps are? So to Ryan's questions, I mean, there's so many places. Again, I always say this, but I feel like live music is really in our infancy in terms of research and data collection. Those of you know me know I'm a broken record on this, and it's why I'm excited about this particular project and others. But how can what should we be thinking about next steps? A range of stakeholders on the call today, Megan and Zoe. What advice do you have for all of us?
Maybe I can get started in terms of answering the part about next steps, and Megan, you can kind of maybe dig into, how to get involved. Because really, I think, Megan and I have chatted a lot about what comes next from this work. And I think one key step would be delving a bit deeper to understand kind of where the labor gaps are in the industry, as we were kind of talking about, to kind of help support that work of post-secondary institutions to be able to better churn out the talent that's industry ready. And this could look at more detailed quantitative analysis to understand what positions are required, what areas, and kind of what are the skills needed. And then additionally, we kind of just hope as another next step that again, this report really starts conversations in the industry and gets people thinking about where they can maybe collaborate to tackle some of these issues, whether that be at micro levels within your own individual organization, at local levels at a city, kind of city mandate, or even broader than that. And we would really just encourage everyone tuning in today to, after this call, have a look at the full report and really think about and maybe identify areas that you maybe see yourself supporting or what you can do in your capacity to kind of push this work forward.
Definitely. Thanks, Zoe. And yeah, so in terms of like what everyone's individual roles can do to kind of move this work forward, you'll see throughout the full report, we really have kind of signposted potential areas for action, depending on your role, your job within this ecosystem. So, a few things to kind of just pull out in particular around, say, post-secondary or educators. You could explore initiatives around professional development or more training, particularly around business skills. So really thinking about how to support the workforce readiness of the sector. For municipalities or folks that are working with the city, you could explore how to ensure business centers meet the needs of the live industry. Think about ways to help workers navigate that bureaucratic process. For example, how-to guides. And also kind of going to the earlier question too, just thinking about building those relationships with the sector and being able to advocate for policy changes or different actions that might be impacting them. For example, people working in arts councils or associations, you could think about what partnerships you could explore in developing and sharing training and informational resources more widely. And then for employers, we touched on a few of these things throughout the presentation today as well, but just increasing visibility of resources, in particular around mental health on your website or even on site in person, just really encouraging those discussions around mental health, even, encouraging safe spaces at venues, and just considering those mental health needs of employees and contractors in your conversations with folks that you're working with. So lots of action to come, but I think everybody has a role to play is kind of the key takeaway that we hope in terms of like next steps, that it's not just on one person or one organization to move this forward, but it's really going to be a collaborative effort.
Thank you both, and so many ideas there. I'm glad we're recording this because certainly at the Canadian Live Music Association, we feel that we're always providing offerings to our especially membership in the broader community to engage with on what we feel are sort of in the moment needs, priorities, issues, challenges, barriers, for sure. And so those of you who are not members, please join the Canadian Live Music Association. Maddie is standing by to take your call, but also I really do think the message in there is for associations and others in this space that we need to be constantly taking stock of what it is we're offering and leveraging research like this to make sure that we're as in the moment and as we can be, because these things are shifting at the speed of light, as we know, and so we need to be always just one step ahead. And to that, sorry, I'm just going to back this up. A final question in the chat here. I think it's from Will. If I could just move my little mouse thingy. Oh, sorry, I backed up there. Will Richards asks, and it's a great question, what were the overarching barriers for mid to high level operators to return to the market? Was it wages, work-life balance? Did you get a sense of that during the process?
Yeah, I will say it largely touches on many of the challenges we kind of noted throughout the presentation. But wage and work-life balance, I'd say, are two kind of key ones, having the economic sustainability. And I think it's not just for music, but I think in a lot of industries that are more precarious and kind of gig-based too, I think just the general emphasis on work-life balance and what that means in terms of what hours people are willing to work and kind of, valuing more of that kind of life side of things can be a really challenge, can be a big challenge in kind of getting some of these workers back to actually want to come back to work in the sector where maybe that wage isn't necessarily really coinciding with what they're going to be required to do in terms of hours. So I'd say that was one kind of key area that did emerge. But again, it really touches on a number of the challenges related to kind of professional development and kind of throughout our entire report as well. I don't know, Megan, if you had anything to add to that.
I think you captured it.
Great, thanks, Zoe. Okay, so I lied. We'll take one more question from Matthew. Were there differences noticed between different markets in the province? Labor is very different in major centers like Toronto and Ottawa versus other areas.
Yeah, no, great question. And to be honest, we really didn't. We heard of very similar findings across each of the 3 open houses. So, not to say that that wouldn't be the case if we were to expand this research in the future, but we spoke to folks in Ottawa and Toronto and in London, and they really kind of built on what we were hearing in each of those cities and reiterated the same challenges. So regardless of size, it really seems like these are the core issues for folks working in live music.
Great question. Great questions. All of you who posted in the chat, thank you so much. Seeing no further questions and watching the clock, I feel like we can conclude today. Since most of you are still on the call, I feel like, this is useful for you. And I'm really, again, so grateful to those of you who make time in your day to learn more about this work and join us to hear from our experts at Nordicity on the findings. This research is now available on our website. I believe Jacqueline's pressing go on an email in a few minutes to circulate to the broader community. And so you'll be able to take a deeper dive and of course, be in touch with our office anytime on further questions or ideas, or again, working together on how to build the live music industry in Ontario and Canada of the future. So a final shout out to Nordicity. Thank you so much for your hard work here. To our friends and family at Ontario Creates for not just the funding, but your constant partnership, which we deeply appreciate. To my amazing team at the Canadian Live Music Association, and to all of you who joined us today, it is our job here to continue to ask and reflect on questions that we need answers to. And we're again grateful to our members who joined us today for your ongoing support to help us be able to take on this work on your behalf. And I do want to say a special shout out with my final words to my friend Wayne Zronic, who put the bug in my ear in the first place, that a study like this would be really helpful. And he was absolutely right. So we look forward to build on this work in the future. And we thank you again for your attention and participation today. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the part where you get to bust people who weren't paying attention and you see who's left on at the end.
Right.
Who are you going to bust? I got great job, team. Thanks, anyone who's hanging on. Appreciate it. We'll see you on Slack, team. Thanks. Great
Bye.
work. Bye.